Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Prog Report podcast interview. This is Roy. Hope you guys are doing okay out there. My guest on this episode is Roine Stolt from the Flower Kings. They have a brand new album on the way on September 8th called Look at You Now. We talk about that album, a bunch of vinyl reissues that he's been doing over the last year, the upcoming tour, and a bunch of other stuff as well. Before we get started, just a reminder to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Anywhere you get your podcasts, we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, and everywhere else. Always follow us on progreport.com and on our socials for all the upcoming news, interviews, reviews, and more. And now my chat with Roine Stolt. Mr. Roine Stolt, how's it going, man? How you been?
I'm fine, thank you. Fine. Not much of a summer, but it's still summer.
Well, is it as hot over there in Europe as it is over here? Because
Well, let's put it this way. Certain parts of Europe, well, it's just crazy hot. Like
yeah.
Italy, Spain, south of France. Not so much up here in Sweden, actually.
We've got a lot to talk to you about. A lot of reissues, new album, all that kind of stuff. The
Oh,
brand new
yeah.
album, Look at You Now, comes out on September 8th. There's a single out now, Beginner's Eyes. Great stuff. I mean, I'm always amazed that you just keep coming out with album after album. It just never stops. How do you keep that going?
How do I do it? Well, I don't know, really. It's just what I do. I mean, what else can I do? Or that's what bands do, I suppose. And
Yeah.
you know, writing songs, recording them, releasing them for the world to hear.
But are you going down to, I guess, like your home studio or whatever? You going down there every day as like a routine to
I'm
let me
actually
write
sitting,
today? Or
I'm actually sitting in my home studio. Home studio today is a very different thing from what it used to be. People used to have big mixing desks. Now everything
right.
is in the computer, so it's a bit like this. I have a little bit of outboard gear and couple of synthesizers and
Right.
pianos and stuff hidden in here. Guitars and amps, of course, lots of guitars. But no, I mean it's. I have the luxury of being able to get up in the morning, have my not coffee in the morning. I have coffee in the afternoon. Actually, my wife has the coffee in the morning. I have it in the afternoon. But do my breakfast and then I go into the studio. If I'm lucky, I can work with music. Sometimes I just work with just paperwork. Make everything work. All the boring stuff like whatever, making sure flight tickets are booked or whatever. That kind of thing.
Right.
But on a good day, I can go in here. I can be creative, and normally I mean, being a guitar player, I actually most of the time sit down by the keyboard. It's just convenient. And the keyboard today, I mean, hooked up with the computer, you have keyboard with whatever pianos or organs or violins or percussion sounds, drums. So everything can be programmed from a keyboard.
And some
So,
days it's a new idea, right? And that maybe you never use or you use on an album 10 years from now. Or I mean, is that how it
oh
just you
yeah,
just
yeah,
coming up with
yeah, yeah.
stuff?
That's very true. In my case, it's not like I want to be in the now, but I want to be also sort of looking back at music I've done demos for in a very long time. For this album, I think actually, if I remember right, the opening track I think has bits and pieces from a song I wrote even before the Flower Kings existed. So that's a very
Wow.
long time. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
So
crazy.
so wait, so I was going to ask you about that song, but we could get into that.
Sure.
How does that happen? I mean, are you going back and looking at old demos? Was it something you found from the reissues maybe? How does that come up?
No, well, yeah. I mean, the reissues is more like doing different mixes or doing a better master for the reissues. But generally, I go back, and I have done so the past few albums. Go back to songs I've written 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. In this case, even like 25 years ago. So because I just found it interesting to go back and see how did I write songs then, probably different than I do now.
Right.
Uh, Trying to avoid it being more like a factory of just doing writing songs because someone is asking for an album, things like that. So I imagine I wrote songs different back then, or even like 5 years ago or 10 years ago.
Right.
So much,
Yeah.
so much music passing through, and you're being influenced, or you're having the impressions of music you've heard recently, or music I haven't heard in a very long time. There's certain bands or music I did listen to quite a bit back then, but I don't listen to much now. So it's just a way to sort of mix it up a little bit.
Yeah. It sounds great, and it's a great song. So the album is "Look at You Now." Why that title? What's that? What does that title mean?
Well, it's actually look at you now, look at us now, or look at you now. The band looking at ourselves, or the band looking at the audience, or the audience looking at us. But the funny thing is, we had this artwork thing coming up from a guy who just sent me something on Facebook, I think, like a message,
Mhm.
uh, talked about his father had just died. His father was like a stunt guy in Canada who did flying machines, and stunt stuff. I don't know exactly what they do, but I imagine they're doing all these things, crazy things.
Right.
And his father was a big fan of the Flower Kings and always listened to the Flower Kings. So I guess his son got kind of emotional and wanted to get in contact with me and tell the story about his father, blah blah blah. And he sent me a few things which I found interesting, and said, "What else do we have? And can you send more?" And he sent more, and he came up with this front of the album thing.
Wow.
And yeah, interesting. So and we had that, and I presented it to the rest of the band, and they liked it, and then just I did just a mock-up to make it look like a record, you know,
Right.
out-
Hmm.
having the Flower Kings logo, whatever. And I just, there's this eye, and I just wrote, "Look at you now." And then we started talking about possible titles for the album, and everything we came up with didn't feel quite right, and then I don't know if it was me or someone else said, "Well, why not use what you have? That's kind of a cool title."
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's
if you
cool.
want,
It is. I mean, I was wondering because it's sort of like, we've been here for so long. Look, look at us now. Look at you now. Still doing
yeah,
this.
I mean, it's very much in the now, and it's also everything. It's I sometimes believe in, I mean, the coincidence of everything happening now, and this album, and this guy contacting me, and it just happens, and then maybe you just listen, and oh, maybe this is meant to happen now, and also knowing that, I mean, looking at the lyrics of the album, it's very much based in the now. So it's not lyrics about the shining knights and fair ladies and that kind of thing. That
Right.
sometimes people say,
What
"Oh,
everybody thinks Prague is
it's
about.
it's about dragons and knights," and no, it's not.
No,
It's
no.
This is very much about now, and
The
and
other, so you've also been on a sort of a run with double albums, and here we have a single album. Still pretty long disc though. Was it close to being a double album? Did you leave stuff off?
no,
Off?
this time we actually decided to not make a double album because we made quite quite a few of them actually. And
That's good.
so we said, let's just try to be to the point, and with the songs and the way we edit the songs, and you know let's make a single album.
Yeah. So talk about
Mm.
the lineup for this record. Who do we have playing on the record with you?
It's basically just myself and my brother Michael on bass guitar and some vocals, and Hasse Fröberg, of course, on vocals and guitar, and Mirko De Maio, our Italian drummer. because just at the time we were starting the recording, we just came to the point where we realized it will not be possible to have an American keyboard player in the band, or any, I mean, any musician from America means lots of travel with heavy keyboards, and every time you're gonna rehearse and everything. So unfortunately, uh, we just came to the point, and this has been talked about for some time, but just came to the point we felt, oh, there's probably a tour coming up, and to do the tour proper and to get all the rehearsals, and even for the stuff that we've been doing now, springtime, going into Norway 2 times, flying in, we can't just have someone coming in from America and bringing all the keyboards and the hotel costs and the flights, and it's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
crazy. So I mean, one guy in America cost me 2 or 3 times as much as the guys in the band in Sweden, because myself and Michael and Hasse, we live pretty much in the same place, and Mirko is in Italy, and we can deal with that.
Right.
Yeah, so that meant and I asked Zach, do you want to play on the album? Because it's fine, you can play on the album. And he said, well, probably not. Maybe it's better to just leave it to you guys, and you have the keyboards already there. And so it's basically myself playing keyboard,
Hmm.
and we had for 2 songs we had Lalle Larsson, who is the guy we played with. I toured with Agents of Mercy some 10
Right.
years ago. So he's out. I mean, generally speaking, I would say Lally is more like a fusion jazz keyboard player, but he's
So
out playing ABBA music right now with people, and touring. He just came back from America, and he's going there back and forth all the time.
nice.
Yeah.
So is there going to be somebody joining on keyboards for touring?
Oh yeah, Lally is joining us for
Okay.
the tour. Yeah, and we have
Yeah.
another guy, Daniel, who lives here in Uppsala too. So that makes everything easy.
So you just did a few shows, like you said, but you have a big tour coming up soon in October. Quite a lot of dates.
Yeah, yeah.
What I'm assuming it's going to be part of the new record, part of going back through the catalog. Anything specific on that
Yeah,
you
I
have
mean,
planned?
you always have to play something from the new record, and we happen to like the new record, so we're thinking of playing maybe 4 or 5 songs from the new record, and then it's going to be mostly a look back at the early Flower Kings albums that seem to go down well with fans. I mean, like Retropolis, Back in the World of Adventure, Start As We Are, Flower Power, Unfold the Future, Space Revolver, these kind of albums.
Good stuff.
So yeah, it is, and it's great to come back and play it again, and certain
Uh,
songs always work live. So
So yeah, I mean, I want to talk about the reissues that have been going on now for I think about a year or something like that. And there's been every every few months a couple of albums coming out that you've remixed some of it or remastered some of it, and they look great, all sorts of different vinyl colors and different things.
yeah.
Um, what what was the challenge of doing that whole thing, and was it a challenge? Was it fun? Was it a lot of work? What was it like?
It was both, actually. A challenge, yes, because just finding, because I mean, the option is just take the albums as they were and release it. But now when I look back 20 years, I can hear it, I can see sometimes it was tweaked a bit too much, it was over compressed. So for me to have a chance to remaster them, and in some cases remix songs, is something I just had to do, because I felt it's now or never.
Because
It's
you
gonna
can. That's it.
do it proper,
Yeah.
and then finding, you have to understand then that when the band started, the first recordings were just recorded reel to reel, and I still have that recorder. It was just like a 16-track reel to reel machine. And
Mhm.
then second album, I think we did that in sync with some kind of ADAT at the time, 8 channels extra, so we had 24 channels. and then did a few albums with that, and then we moved over to hard drive recording system, and then from that point, probably around 2000, we move over to the computer and record everything like everyone else, basically. I mean, that's what
Right.
happened at the time. So that means I had to go back and find every tape, and in some cases the tapes are very old and you can't play them anymore. So you
Right.
had to put them in an oven and bake
I've
them
heard
for.
I've heard that's a thing, yeah, that you can do,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, come on. That's what they did with all the Beatles tape and everything,
Right.
Elton John or whoever, did an album 25, 30, 35 years ago. They have to go back and bake them, and then you can play them for a day, I think, and then transfer to the digital media and do it in
Wow.
Pro Tools, whatever. So yeah, that it was a lot of work. It was a lot of fun, a lot of not so much fun, and in the end, at least I got to the point where I felt, oh, this sounds much better than the original CD. So I think, I mean, in the end, it was worth it. But you have to remember, we're talking now about well, 12 albums, I think, something like that,
Yeah, I
and
think so.
many of them are double albums, as you know.
Yeah. Were there one or two albums that, after going through all of this, that you figured out you like the most, more than some others, or anything like that?
Well, I mean, before starting, I always had the idea that my favorite albums were probably Stardust VR, Space Revolver, and they're still very good albums, and sort of in the in the upper of what I consider. It's like, I mean, to be honest, I don't sit around listening to our own music. It sounds kind of weird, because no, he's not interested in his own music. Of course I
No,
am,
I hear
but
I hear that from a lot of artists. They
yeah,
all say that.
I can't really see Todd Rundgren sitting around listening, or Paul McCartney, or whatever.
Right.
But in this case, you have to do something. You release it, and then you have to make a decision. What do I want this to be? And I had to listen through everything, and many, many times, because you start remastering, you start remixing, then you listen to
Mm.
the songs many, many times again. And what was surprising, that I felt at the time, I think I felt, maybe because of the audience reaction, but I think I and maybe the rest of the band felt at the time that maybe Rainmaker wasn't that great of an album. It had a few songs. Adam and Eve wasn't one of our favorite albums, but going back now, I hear it in a different way. So I
Right.
was pleasantly surprised how good these albums are, and how well they stand up to. It seems like they have aged well, if I may say so.
Yeah, I would
And
say.
there's always stuff that I felt, oh, maybe that song was 20 minutes, and I could have cut it down to 10, maybe. There's always going to be songs like that, but then you find also songs that you're pleasantly surprised at how good the songs are, and how well performed, and the sound is great and everything. And they could have been written now, or they could have been released last year.
Right.
So
Yeah, I would imagine that would be a fun part of it. Did any of those old albums influence how you looked at the new record when you were putting it together?
I don't know. It was kind of interesting to listen to something that I haven't heard in a very long time, and you learn something about yourself and your songwriting, of course. And I think what I walked out of this maybe feeling that I should listen less to other artists than I should try to listen to, to to myself and my inner voice, whatever you would call it. It's because I think that's what's great with artists that have their own style, or their own. There's always going to be someone else that are more successful. But if you start listening to the people who are more successful, then maybe you lose yourself in just trying to be someone else, and you have to accept who you are, and this is me, and maybe I won't be the biggest artist in prog of all time, but at least this is Roine's music, and this is how he writes songs. So the influences I learned I had is very much Swedish folk music that I hear some of in the older Flower Kings recordings, and there's bits of jazz and classical music and orchestral music, and
Yeah.
the bits I liked least are actually the metal, the riffing things. Um, well, they're okay, but it just feels like, well, there's so many bands doing the riffing, and even more
Right.
today than it was back then, to be
Yeah.
honest. Many of them do it really well, and I'm not saying we're not doing it well. It's just like I can't feel it. It's not in my heart.
Yeah. It's not your lane, maybe. Yeah.
No, I mean, it's more like the getting to know yourself and your musical tastes, and you. I'm thinking about the albums I listen to now, and the artists I listen to now, and what they write and what they present. I can feel it. I think I can feel it more today. That yes, I like that, and I like that. If someone talked to me about metal, then I'm gonna say yes, I like Deep Purple because they had a swing. They were original. The way they mixed up everything, and sometimes Led Zeppelin, but many other metal bands I'm totally uninterested. I have no interest at all, to be honest. So, but I'm aware that lots of people in the progressive rock field adore many of these metal bands,
Sure.
but it's just me. So it's like getting to know yourself and your musical tastes. And I mean, I'm not ashamed to say I like folk music, or I listen to opera, and I listen to classical music, and I get a kick out of it, and jazz. I mean, since I was a teenager, I listened a lot to jazz, and I get a much bigger kick from that, to be honest. And improvise.
um,
I love improvised music, and I see all these great wind players or pianists and drummers, lots of great jazz drummers. That's what I get a kick out of.
yeah.
Simply,
Well, I mean, I think it shows in the music you guys have. There's a Flower King sound. I mean, you guys are unique to what the band is. You can tell right away it's your music, and I think that's the most important thing with writing music is that you have your own sound, which you absolutely do. I mean, it's no question.
hmm.
There's another song on the record, the second track, I think, "The Dream," which I wanted to mention because that's fantastic as well. Talk about that song a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, actually, the song came to me in a dream, and that has happened before. And then I was just stupid not getting up, in the morning, and trying to remember or write it down or record it. But this time I actually did. It was probably I don't know, maybe 5 or 5:30 in the morning. I wake up and I have this music and I have a few phrases of the lyrics, and I think if I go back to sleep now, I won't be able to remember it. So I get up, and that's the good thing having a studio at home. Get up, go into the studio, turn everything on, put up the microphone, turn on the piano, and I record a bit. So it's interesting, and the dream is, the song is called "The Dream," and it was actually written, or most of it was written in the dream.
Perfect.
So yeah, and I was thinking, oh, is this good? I had no idea, and then I sent the songs around to the guys, and they liked it, and then we recorded the album, and then I think both Michael and Hasse, they were really insisting that, well, this is a great song, and we should have it like a single. And I said, well, that's maybe not how I see it, but it's a good song. But they were just insisting, no, no, no. And so yeah, so they could have their way this time, and I mean, looking back, maybe I hope they're right, because that's the
I
next
think they
thing.
might be. I think they might be. That's a good song. I
Yeah,
really like that
yeah,
one.
yeah, could be.
Yeah,
So we
so
even
people
put it
hopefully will
in
hear
the,
that soon.
yeah, we're gonna put it in the set list and everything. So it's yeah, Sometimes I can't because I'm too close to the music, or maybe I favor something else, and someone else from the band comes in and say, "Well, that's a great song. We should push that a little bit."
Right. Yeah, for sure. One more thing I want to touch base with you before I let you go. Just was also recently announced the Anderson Stolt vinyl reissue for Invention of Knowledge,
Mhm.
which was that great album you did with Jon Anderson a few years ago. Looks also really cool, nice packaging. You had a chance to go back and work on that a little bit. What was revisiting that album like?
Well, the truth is, this was, I think, already 5 years ago. It was supposed to be like a surround mix that didn't materialize. I think I mixed half of the album, and it was supposed to be like some sort of a package, with the remixes and stuff like that, 24-bit 96. So I already had these mixes. And
Mm,
then Inside Out came back to me a couple of months ago, and they said we were thinking of re-releasing this because I think actually the CD hasn't been in stock, and definitely not the vinyl for a long time, and which is a shame. I think it's a great album.
yeah,
So I said, yeah, I have these 24-bit 96 mixes. So they were done a couple of years ago. So I just did run it through my analog compressors and equalizers and stuff, and did the masters for this. And it was, in my mind, it was meant to be even the CD, like using this for the, but some confusion there. I just found out actually yesterday, but we'll see. But anyway, the vinyl is the new mixes, the 24-bit remixes, and I think even one song has another 2 minutes extra that wasn't on the original. The very cool synthesizer solo, I think, by Tom Brislin.
nice.
And yeah, I mean, and the funny thing, actually, believe it or not, Jon Anderson is coming to my hometown 2 days from now. I think on Wednesday, actually,
Oh, nice.
playing
Very
an
cool.
outdoor with the kids, the School of Rock kids.
Right, right,
Yeah. What are the chances?
right.
The stage is about
Hey, I know. But record part two while he's in town. I don't know.
yeah, yeah, that's crazy. Crazy. Small
Cool.
world. Yeah.
Well,
So that,
Royna or Roy with an N. Our names are the same here.
I
I
just
feel like here.
it's the Roy and the Royne. Roy and Roy.
You can do
We
that,
should start a band.
right?
Roy and be a
um,
success.
always awesome talking to you, man. And you're gonna be on Cruise to the Edge next year, right?
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Mm.
that's awesome. All right, so I will see you there again, and good luck with all the many different albums and the new album. Look at You Now.
Yeah.
September 8th is out there. Go pre-order it, stream the new singles, watch the videos, all that stuff, and catch the band on tour. Tour dates are on socials, band website, all that stuff. And see you soon, man. Good talking to
Yeah.
you.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Bye, Roy.
Bye. Bye, man. Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Check us out on all our socials and on progreport.com for all your news, interviews, reviews, and more. And we'll see you again real soon.